What's good with the YouTube? You already know Big Flacco with a convict's perspective, and I'm gonna smash, dash, slide on through that little bit of energy. Please hit the like, subscribe, comment, do all those things to help support this channel, and hit that bell notification for future buyer content. So we're doing a weekly review on a video that I had to, not a weekly, a yearly review. Movie had to move over from Real Talk with Flacco. Not everybody got to see it, but it talks about the bloody weekend in El Salvador, right? With, I think there was, what, 94, 100 something murders just in one weekend. And this led to the El Salvador's president to start putting harsh conditions, man, that have been called into question by human rights activists, okay? They've locked up 2% of its population in El Salvador. All gang members are basically being cornered, taken to jail. No due process is being awarded to them. You know, this country, I guess, got fed up with all the gang violence, gang activities, and whatnot. And before, there was a lot of corrupt inner workings and inner dealings that occurred between the El Salvador government and some of these gangs. You know, so it's a whole new regime and position that they're taking, and there's a lot of controversy surrounding it, man. So tap in this video. Hope you guys enjoy it. With that said, I'm gone.
We're going to be talking about what's been going on over there in El Salvador, nationwide, and so forth, because there's a lot of attention being put on by the media. And there's a lot of unanswered questions about what's really going on. And I'm also going to give you my personal narrative of why one particular group is being given more attention than the other. Okay, so as we know, El Salvador put a state of the emergency. There was 87 murders that occurred between two primary gangs in El Salvador. MS-13, or I'm going to call them Mara Salvatrucha, the MS, in Barrio 18th Street. We're just going to call them 18th Street. Which led to numerous, citizens being searched, numerous individuals being locked up and incarcerated, so forth. Certain punishments that are being bestowed to inmates that are locked up. You've seen in one of the news headlines was that the El Salvador president has threatened to retaliate against 16,000 gang members that are incarcerated if the killings don't stop. Okay, so you got a whole interesting situation. They're placing a lot of the blame on the 5 individuals who just got locked up. I dropped a story on them, on El Perverse, as well as his 4 other individuals he got arrested with, who had strong contacts to El Salvador while he was in Washington, D.C., and that relationship continued. So, back to this whole narrative of what's going on. I'm reading different articles and so forth, and all I continuously see is that MS-13 is getting more of the attention. They're saying that they were more of the aggressors, the ones that influenced this. And that's just been basically the narrative that's been pushed for like the last 7 years towards MS-13. If you notice, anytime there's an MS-13 case, there's a lot of scrutiny. There's a lot of attention from the media, political panels, and so forth. I forgot who the person was that kind of started this narrative. It was before Donald Trump, but Donald Trump had a little bit of influence on this, like I said before, when he was campaigning on the proposal of building a wall to keep MS-13 gang members out, that they were bringing in drugs, gangs, raping people, and all kinds of things, you know what I mean? And if you notice, since then, the media's attention on it has continued to spiral one path, and all the focus has been on MS-13. Yes, they're a strong faction. They're a big group. They have an estimated, I think, globally, somewhere between 50,000 and 70,000 members. It's kind of hard to pinpoint, but that's what the statistics say. Now, if you notice, another gang that has even older roots and also has nationwide syndicates and cells, and is also a big factor in El Salvador, is not getting the same attention, which is Barrio 18th Street, who've been around for a minute. And you can't really say which group is going to be more stronger or more powerful. They've been killing each other since way back in the days, since their conflict out there in LA, which started to migrate back down to El Salvador, and it continues throughout the nation as well. So, the media's influence, political parties' influence for campaigning and so forth, can actually have an adverse effect upon the gang culture. And this is the primary example. This whole notion that MS-13 is this super crazy, wicked, satanic group and so forth, and they have members and they manipulate all kinds of things, have allowed them to have a recruiting-based tool based upon the attention that the media gave them. They've kind of highlighted them to be this super powerful, like unstoppable group. Whereas, in my opinion, the 18th Street is just as strong. You get what I'm saying? But there's no attention because it was never propagated out there to the community. You know, a lot of people are going to base what they hear out there in the media, what they read in the newspapers. And so every time I hear a story that concerns these particular two groups, MS-13 is being more notarized and the attention is being based upon them as opposed to 18th Street. And see, 18th Street may not have as deep of a global presence as MS-13, but they have a presence. In El Salvador, they are just as strong as MS. So, you know, the whole point of this message, man, is I'm trying to figure out what the ulterior motive is behind this, what the agenda is here. Because every time I turn around, I listen to some new story or read some new article. You know, the scrutiny and attention is all being put upon MS-13. You know, from recently El Perverse to this recent 87 killings in one day to La Diablita, all the way back to Trump. MS-13 has been really stamped as the most worst gang and powerful gang in the United States, which I don't necessarily agree with. Not to say that they're not a strong force to be reckoned with, but I think the media gives them more attention than what's deserved. You know, you have groups like the Latin Kings that have been around, strong foundation. You have the Sureños in general, which are a strong foundation of all kinds of subset factions. Even the Norteños are deep as well. You know what I'm saying? To highlight one particular group, to push their narrative and agenda, it's going to have that everlasting effect of a recruiting tool, basically. You know what I'm saying? Because you're building them into some super enterprise that's unstoppable and crazy, that this is what people are going to hear. You get what I'm saying? And I don't know how much, you know, how much influence that occurs over there in El Salvador. Just remember, this is an opinion because I've talked to certain individuals that are from out that way. And I've always told them that, you know, when I break down a topic like this is just from my perspective and my views. If I have some facts, I'm going to present those facts. But this is just what I'm observing and seeing. You know, even the president of El Salvador, each administration has had a working relationship with these groups, right? And that's being highlighted by the U.S. officials. They're looking into that. So I wonder how much of a political ploy all this stuff is. Because anytime you start to see any type of media publications on certain individuals, right, there's usually a buildup for something bigger to come. You know, we can go back throughout history. Look at Saddam Hussein, the same individual we used to help with arms to support their plight and their war against Iran, right? As soon as we started to sever ties and we knew that he was threatening Kuwait, you started seeing a little bit of media publications about him being a bad man. But for years before that, we were in support of him. And then next thing you know, he's invading Kuwait and we're getting involved in Operation Desert Storm. You know, same thing with Bin Laden. Before 9/11 happened, 6 months before, he came out of Maxim magazine as one of the 20 top threats to the world, right? Before that, no one had heard anything about him, except for that we were assisting him in his plight against Russia. Yet all of a sudden, 6 months before something big happens, you start hearing about Bin Laden. How come you hear about this individual and then this big massacre happens on 9/11? You get what I'm saying? So it's the same thing I'm seeing with MS-13, and I don't know what the agenda is here. I'm not saying that this is no conspiracy or anything like that. It's just I notice how the media gives power, it gives life to certain groups or certain individuals. You know, and right now the media has gave a lot of attention to MS-13. But why is 18th Street not getting the same attention? 18th Street is just as much with a factor and with a business over there in El Salvador. They're just as much a factor in LA. You know, there's a lot of groups out there in LA that are deeper and more with it out there than the MS-13. No disrespect to them, but that's just the truth of it. I think they're nationwide able to, you know, move into certain areas and set up shop has gave them a little bit more attention because they have been able to do that. And we already know how that came about. When you start to send individuals back, you know, in the 90s through immigration, they took that whole gang culture with them. They already started to recruit, and as people come over this country, everybody's going to push that agenda, you know. And with everything that's going on, man, regarding MS-13, I just see like there's something more to it. There's someone that has an ulterior motive that is outside the realm of just prison politics. There's someone that has an influence that they want MS-13 to grab that attention. I don't know the reasons why, but it's there. Either that or just the media decided to run with it after Donald Trump put it all out there, you know, which is also known. But every time I turn on and I look up articles and stuff to, you know, I read stuff up. I read cases, court cases. I try to read world news, and I look into different gangs in different countries, and I try to grasp an understanding of them in case I have to do a spill on them. And the one thing I've noticed over and over again, the one particular group that continues to get the attention of the media is the MS-13. And I'm just wondering what the agenda is there. And what has it led it to? You see numerous videos people are making about them now. You know what I'm saying? Especially since the incident with the MA. There's a whole lot of attention on them. And what is the purpose behind it? You know, I mean, I'm a deep thinker. I'm very analytical. And I also keep it real. So when I look at breaking down these certain topics like this, I'm looking for an answer of why. Why is the media so infatuated by the MS-13? Why is Savador 18th Street getting no attention, yet they're just as much a factor over there in El Salvador? You know, and in some people's eyes, even more so at times. You know, so it makes you think, you know, along with the elected president over there who had some working relationships, you know, with the gangs to try to use it as leverage, you know, and it's kind of empowered the gangs over there, you know, when you're allowed to, told that if you continue to de-escalate the violence, there'll be a lot less pressure on the gang. But, you know, and what I'm seeing from this country, El Salvador, their whole political system and government, man, is corrupt, man. The way they dealt with this, a lot of civil rights were violated. A lot of people's liberties weren't respected. And it's just a crazy scenario over there, man. And we already know that that's a hub for dealings and stuff, so forth, between people in South America all the way down to the Mexico groups, if you know what I'm talking about, man. So they all have some type of influence. I don't know if, you know, you could sit there and draw all kinds of conspiracy theories on this whole particular subject because it's been a continuous trend. But there's one sided to it that you continue to see. The media, for some reason, wants to put MS-13 on a pedestal up here and other groups down here, particularly the 18th Street, which have been at war for a long time. But in my opinion, and from people I know, the 18th Street have always been factors, period. And not just in Los Angeles, but in El Salvador, in other states as well. I talked to a few out of state, you know what I mean? And this is going to be interesting because no one's really addressed what I just addressed. And, you know, the involvement, and shouts out to the homie Hangout. He gave me that idea. The involvement of the MS-13 and 18th Street is basically one-sided by the media. And therefore, it gives rise to one particular group in the eyes of everybody else. And it's going to have long-term effects. You know, there's a whole different narratives you can draw from this, man. But this is just my view, man. I figured with this weekend occurring that I had to address all this. Anyways, man, it's your boy Flacco. These are just my perspectives, my views. This is just my opinion. There's a lot of things going on with these groups that we don't know. But I'm going to do a little bit more studying into it and see what I can come to terms in understanding. With that said, I'm out.